Oh, wait, I hear sound.
You hear sound?
Yes.
Awesome. Still hear sound.
I still hear you, yes.
Awesome. So give me 1 second. Like I said, backups to my backups.
Sure.
Switch microphones.
There's nowhere to chat. I sent you an email that I couldn't hear.
I wasn't hearing you so much, and I may still not be, but hey, we'll get there. Go ahead and give me a what's up.
Sorry?
Gotcha. I got you good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've got too many microphones and too many devices here. So I was going over the ground rules when my sound was giving me some issues. So again, to make things really simple, folks, like we want to make sure that people don't have to rely on job boards and on resumes in order to find their next job, because those things are antiquated and they don't really do us a ton of good. They still serve some use and they have some purpose, but they more give us the impression of being busy than they do of actually being productive a lot of the time. And so we want to make sure that we're going to break people free of that. And so this is how things are going to go, and how you, the audience, anybody who's paying attention and watching with us, can become involved and can really make a difference in your lives and in other people's lives. You know, each guest that we have on here is going to come on one by one, and we're just going to have a chat, have a casual conversation about sort of what they're into and what they do, their skills, expertise, their interests, employment history, you know, basic goal type things. And I don't want this to really be an interview. I just want it to be a conversation, because I also want to provide some of the skills and some of the advice that has served me well and serves other people well in the job hunt. You know, one of the things that I've learned is that we become very skilled at what we do over the years, but we don't become skilled at finding opportunities to do what we do. And that is an entirely different skill set, and it can become a full-time job in and of itself. And, you know, really the power in this entire show is in the community and anybody watching right now. So how you can be involved is if you have an employment opportunity that could be a fit for one of today's guests, or if you know somebody who might have an opportunity, or if you know somebody who might know somebody that you should connect them with, reach out to them via the method that we've specified here. I've asked each guest to come, before they come on, to specify how they would like to be communicated, because just shout everybody with your email address and then sending you a bunch of potential spam email can become a bit of a pain. So keep in mind, the last thing that I'll say is that timeliness is important here. You know, these are obviously being recorded live, but by the time you see this, it's possible that our guests may have already found gainful employment. So just because you reach out and maybe they're no longer available, you know, don't let that stop you from staying tuned, and you're trying to help out as many people as humanly possible. So with all of that said and all of my nonsense out of the way, I'd like to introduce our first guest for today, and that is, I'm getting this wrong, so I'm just going to guess, Sherry?
Sherry Pear, yes.
Sherry Pear. Awesome.
Yes.
Welcome, Sherry. It's a pleasure to finally get a chance to talk with you. And thanks for joining us for this little experiment.
Thanks. This is such a wonderful experiment. I can't even begin to tell you how nice it is that you're doing this, and how excited I am to be here and to talk with you IRL and not just via text or chat. Right. So it's so nice to actually talk to a human being these days.
It's a little bit fewer and far between than we'd like to have it sometimes. Would you agree?
Yep.
Awesome. So, Sherry, so let me know, to let everybody else know, and I put a little bit of this in the description for today's episode, but you are an illustrator, a visual artist by trade. Tell everybody a little bit about kind of like what you like to do during the day. Like what does your art look like? Like what do your talents really come from?
So a formal title is a cartoonist, but I do all sorts of things. I do comics, illustrations, storyboards, animatics. I do t-shirt designs, logos. Really, I mean,
your audio's
these days
breaking up a little bit for me. It may only be breaking up for me.
Okay. I'm a cartoonist, so I do a lot of work that involves creating comics and illustrations.
Yeah, but it's not. I can't hear you at the moment. Can you jump off and try jumping back on, and I'll let you back on?
Yeah, sure. Let me reload.
Nothing like technical difficulties to plague every single episode that we've done so far. But Sherry's got the link. She's going to join back here in a second, and we'll get her back on here. So there's a link in the description. Got her back. There's a link in the description. So if you do want to be featured on an episode and have a similar conversation, just you click that link and you can apply, and I'll go through and look, and everybody applies. So let's try this again. So Sherry, you are a digital illustrator, multi-talented designer. Go.
Okay. Am I working? Can you hear? Is it broken up?
I can't hear you.
No.
I don't know why.
Yay, technology. I think it's fine from my end. I can. Welcome to working life in 2020. Okay, let me reset.
Hey,
everybody.
I love technology. It is the best. I may have to go back to using Zoom after this, just because it tends to work when you need it to work.
Yeah. Okay, let me see if I try shutting my Wi-Fi on and off. Let me try once. Let me try.
I had you for a second, and then your audio broke up.
Okay.
What's going to be really bad is if everybody else can hear you, but I can't.
I don't know, but in that case, hi everybody. I'm Sherry. Hope that all is well today. I'd reset my Wi-Fi.
The last time we had somebody on who his mic was clipping, and we didn't even realize it for like 7 minutes. I don't have a technical support staff. Unfortunately, it's just me, and that's bad for everyone. I'm going to. This isn't going to work if I can't hear you. This is why you don't do things live, I guess. I don't know. Settings, audio input. I try that. The audio processing off, see if that helps. Now I can't even hear myself speak. So, let's see.
Okay, I'll be right back. One second. I'll be right back. 1 minute. Let me try. Hello. Is this working at all?
I cannot hear you. This is ridiculous. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, I'm going to request a refund from Restream for causing all these headaches. Secondly, I think what I'd like to do is, Sherry, just send you a Zoom, like we'll jump on a Zoom call.
Okay.
And I'll get through Restream and through these other places, we'll get that streamed live on Zoom. We just won't use their studio and their whole setup here. I'll stream live through a different method, and so we'll be right back, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good.
See you in a minute. So we should be starting here soon. It's probably going to confuse the crap out of people who watch the bad recording, but that's okay.
It's all good.
This is what you get for trying a newcomer to the whole live streaming game. Is their software isn't always up to date. So we will just go ahead, now that we are live, and we should be going live here on Facebook, YouTube, what have you, is we're just going to jump right back in. And I'm here with Sherry Fair, and we're here on the Anti-Résumé so that we can help people to find jobs through unconventional means, maybe what they're not used to, but also highlight some of their skills and some of their strengths. So Sherry, let's kick it back to the beginning again. I mentioned that you are an illustrator, a visual designer, extremely talented artist. And what is the nature of the work that you do?
So I guess I most frequently go by the title of cartoonist. I write comics, illustrate them. I do storyboards, children's books, t-shirts, graphics, logos, greeting cards, basically anything I can that involves my hand and drawing.
Okay. And how did you come to get into being a cartoonist?
So I've been drawing since I was about 18 months old, like drawing people. When I was 5, I went for an interview for a private school I ended up going to for 12 years. And the psychologist like, yeah, she's a very smart girl, but she can draw. You need to get her lessons. So I was like, I'm not getting a 5-year-old lessons to be an artist. But then I guess when I was 6, I was old enough. So I started getting lessons at the age of 6. And I basically took art lessons every summer from the age of 6 through college. I went to the School of Visual Arts for college, where I majored in cartooning. And I graduated valedictorian there with a BFA in cartooning. I got to give a speech in front of 5,000 people in Radio City Music Hall, which was really fun. And I spent the next decade freelancing, doing all sorts of projects, from coloring books for kids with diabetes. I worked with the author Gretchen Rubin for a comic for her book, the #1 New York Times bestselling book, The Happiness Project. So I was supposed to have a chapter in that book, but it ended up getting cut on the editing block. And you can find the comic online. It's Gretchen Rubin and A Quest for a Passion. And I did a whole bunch of different projects. Anything that I could use my skills for. I did storyboards for companies like Comedy Central, Purina, Bud Light, and the last 3 years until COVID hit, I was working as an in-house cartoonist for an advertising agency, working on the Red Bull cartoons. So that's pretty much my career in a nutshell.
So you've been all over. You've done freelance work. You've done, like you said, you've written out cartoons, you do storyboarding and all of those things, as opposed to somebody who doesn't understand the industry like myself. You know, I hear illustrator and I feel like somebody who draws, or cartoonist, somebody who draws and fills in the cartoons, versus somebody who really tells stories, like it sounds like is what you tend to do. And you've done freelance work, full-time work for an agency. Most people in your position, do they typically find themselves doing freelance work? Do they work long-term, like staff jobs at agencies? What is some of the nature of the work?
I mean, it's all over the place. A lot of people that I went to school with and now are in animation. Well, animation is more specific than cartooning. So there's a lot of, I never learned how to make my art come alive other than doing animated GIFs. But that's a whole other industry. That's for animation. Some people are editors in places like DC Comics and Marvel. A lot of people are freelancing. Some people that I went to college with, like, they don't do it anymore. They've gone on to other careers. A lot of people have transitioned into advertising because a lot of the thing about being a cartoonist is that you have to understand people. And you have to be able to write. You know, the difference between an illustrator and a cartoonist is that an illustrator often just illustrates. Maybe there's, like, you know, some captions that they do and they illustrate it, but for the most part, illustrators are just doing the art. Whereas cartoonists have to concept the writing. You know, they have to put all parts of the art together. So, you know, that's what I like. I really love writing and I love drawing, and I like the whole art of, you know, the pacing and the timing. All that stuff comes into play with a little bit more detail. And animation takes it all to the next level, because then you got to do that and then break it all up into you know, TV shows. So it's just taking that, you know, next level.
You mentioned a lot of the different companies and the different people you've worked for. So your work ranges from commercial work for Red Bull, but also, on your website, I've noticed you'll do political humor, or you'll do, just general illustrations, announcing a particular event, things like that. What is some of your favorite work that you've done over the years, and why has it been some of your favorite work?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that question before. So I think the first project I did out of college that I really loved, I mentioned working with Gretchen Rubin. I like to use my cartoon powers for good, to bring good into the world, to help put good juju out there. So when I was in college, I actually had done a coloring book for kids with diabetes, and that was just such a nice project. It's the first real taste of helping people through my art. And then I did a graphic novel for kids about how not to be a victim to bullying using humor. So I got to write that. I worked with Izzy Kalman, who is he has a company called Bullies to Buddies, and he's a psychologist who actually helps people. He provides programming for people on how to not be a victim. He doesn't like to call it anti-bullying book. He likes to give the power to the victim, the power back to them. And then over the last few years, I actually designed 10 tea bags for a company called The Tea Book. And so you mentioned politics. So I don't love to do politics in my work. I like to do work that brings people together. But you might have seen the work where I had done work for them for the 2016 election, where I equally kind of poke fun at both sides. And I did a tea bag that, if you put them together, they would form a scene of a mad tea party. So that was there are two different teas and two different sides, but you put them together and it's one scene. But I've done an RBG tea for them. I've done Shakespearement, Agatha Christie for their literary line. That was really fun. And then this year I've been doing a lot of coloring pages. People have requested, especially since the lockdown, I've been doing a lot of personalized coloring pages. So that's been really fun to do, and activity pages for people, just the kind of thing to use my powers to help give people,
What's a personalized coloring page?
So people were asking me for a coloring page featuring for their kids. So it started out where somebody asked me, hey, my daughter's having a birthday party and we're in quarantine. So I'm thinking, can I commission you to do a coloring page of her that I can send to all of my friends, of all of my daughter's friends, so that they can all color it at the same time on Zoom. So ever since then, I've just been doing coloring pages for people, and I'm trying to figure out, next steps with that. Because, you can find coloring pages online and some of them are okay, but I try to inject a sense of humor and like a high quality of art that just puts a smile on your face. And so I'm trying to do that even more these days, when it's kind of hard to find reasons to smile sometimes.
Yeah, I'm picturing, just the first thing off the top of my head is for the company who wants some activities for their team that keeps them a little bit more engaged and a little bit more positive. Like, hey, it's like a set of coloring pages, about our team. Here's some pictures of people, or here's so it could be an activity that the company could do to actually put some smiles on people's faces and provide them with these downloads. So just at an individual level, like you said, if you have a birthday coming up, you can't do things together, with your kids and all of their friends, to do something like that. That's really cool. That's having such a creative talent like that is such a gift, and something that you've obviously honed over the years, but that's amazing how you can bring joy to so many people.
Thank you. Yeah. And then something I've been doing for myself lately is that I created this comic strip called Diary of a Corona Mama Gone Mad, where I'm just sharing my experiences of dealing with all this. I'm a mom of 3. I've got 3 little ones at home, but I love to work and I love to share thoughts. So every day I'm just sharing some humorous insight to my life in a way that other people can relate to. So it's been really fun engaging with people from all over, saying, yep, this is me. What are you doing sneaking into my house? Like, you shouldn't be here. We're in quarantine. Get out,
Can I share some of the Diary of a Corona Mama Gone Mad?
Please. Yeah. And so it's yeah, go ahead.
This spoke to me because I saw some of this one talking. This just helps everybody to smile a little bit while looking at everything a lot of us are going through, right? In particular, like, okay, I'm calling it sanity, time of death, 9:37 a.m. And yeah, I mean, your work is definitely outstanding. There's so much on your website that I think people could go to and get inspiration from to really give them some ideas on where you could be of tremendous value to them, right? And to really just, whether it's them or it's a company they know or it's people they know individually, and to, not to flood your inbox with opportunities, but that is kind of the point of what we're doing here, is to really just connect your talent and your ability with, you and I have chatted already a little bit. I have zero talent in this area, and there are a million ways in my business that I know that this sort of illustration and illustrating a concept that maybe is a little drier or not quite as lighthearted in a more humorous way. And so, I think that there's definitely opportunity there. So let me ask you this on the career side of things. Where have you been looking lately? And you mentioned a few of the things you've been doing, but like, where eyes been going on finding your next gig?
I mean, I've been hitting up my network. I've been going on LinkedIn, on Indeed, on all the job sites, Glassdoor, just, shooting out into the wide unknown, and it's crazy because when I found this job that I kind of fell into in advertising, I was found by a recruiter on LinkedIn. So I didn't have to search for that position per se. So I've been, especially like in marketing, I love, I'm a people person. A lot of artists, just they're a little reclusive, or they just like to go and do their art. I love talking to people. I love engaging with people. I love to do art that works with people, which is why advertising is so great, or marketing is so great. So I like anything I can use my skills to tell stories, and especially for topics that are somewhat, well, I guess a little bit sensitive or hard to understand. So I have a series of comics that I did called Cartoonmentary, and I take topics that are taboo and difficult, and I create comics about that as an easy way for people to understand. And it started when between my two older kids, I had a miscarriage, and the thing that made me maddest is that it's so common and people just don't talk about it. There is absolutely no reason why it should be taboo. It's completely natural and happens to 20 to 25% of the population of all women who are pregnant. So why is it taboo? So I created a comic about my experience, and then I took other people's stories, a man's perspective on miscarriage, or someone who had a baby with Down syndrome, and I'm working on more in the series. And I create stories in a way that people can relate to feel like they're not alone. That for that series, actress Mayim Bialik shared the comics so that it was able to go a little viral. And I was invited to speak. Another thing that I've been doing is that I've been giving workshops lately. Yesterday was the first time that I gave a workshop to 75 kids on Zoom. But I've been flown out for my miscarriage comic. I was flown out to England to deliver workshops. And I remember the moment that I went in and I gave a workshop specifically about the miscarriage series. And I asked, had anybody seen my comic? And somebody raised their hand and said, yes, I saw your comic the week that I had a miscarriage, and I've reread it several times since. And every time I read it, I get a different perspective on it. So I think, especially since we're all online now, my skills are very useful because they can help companies get messages out there, whether it's through activity pages, whether it's through comics or comic strips. I mean, I've done holiday adult coloring pages for companies. Basically, a dream job would be the position to sit there and create content to help companies, get their message across in a way that is engaging to the readers, in a way that it's shareable, so people are going to want to share it. And that's where my passion lies.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I hadn't seen the cartoon mentoring stuff that you're doing, and obviously, like I said, you're extremely talented. And you're really focused in on doing extremely important work. And I want to touch a little bit on, you mentioned that you reached out to your network and you've done the standard on LinkedIn, things and like that. I know from experience that anybody in any sort of creative endeavor is usually not the best at selling themselves, and usually not the best at reaching out to people. And you kind of sometimes can assume the work will speak for itself. So I want to know, like, if you think about maybe the top 2 or 3 people that you know that just, whether they're directly in your network, maybe they're a client or they're a member of an organization you did some amazing work for before, but like the top 2 or 3 people that you think they love my work. Like they love my work so much they don't stop talking about it, and their spouse at home would probably tell them to stop talking about that. Just let's move on to something else. Have you reached out to those people directly?
Yeah, people have been really helpful with trying. I have friends and organizations that I'm dying to be a part of, and they're doing what they can to do that. There are a couple more people on my list I have to get to, but I'm trying to also reach out to the people like, yeah, I want to be at that company. Can you help me with that?
And do you follow up with those people then generally after you reach out to them? Because I know a lot of times things kind of get caught in, we get busy with life.
Yeah, I've been following up. Yeah, I've been trying to follow up. The thing is though, everybody right now has been dealing with everything too, so it's kind of a fun time to lose your job, I guess.
So guys, one thing that I've learned that is a really valuable sales skill that I think translates very well to recruiting on both sides of the equation for employers and for people who are looking for a job is to, when you reach out to somebody and ask them, do you know of anybody looking, or do you know of any opportunities? And give them the ability to say no and to say, not really right now. And if that is the case, to never close that conversation without something to work with. So if they say, I don't really know anybody right now, well, could you connect me with somebody who might?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Just connect me with one person who might know something or might know of somebody. And then not only you're expanding your network, but you're never closing that loop, and you're constantly farming new opportunity.
That's an excellent idea.
So, sorry, I've got a puppy who's just rattling my desk and everything else. It's just such a wonderful time to be living in right now. But in tapping your network, I find that to be a hugely valuable thing, but making sure that, for lack of a better word, you're holding people accountable, right? Because we're all so busy right now. And I think that without meaning to, a lot of times we can we can end up meaning well and then not following up for people. And I know that this has happened to me just over the past few months, where I said, yeah, I'll connect you with so-and-so, and I never get around to doing it because of the things that I have going on. And the times where I have been able to follow through usually leads to something beneficial for one or both parties. So following up with folks and saying, again, giving them the ability to have an out, and saying, just following up, I know you're super busy. If you don't have time right now, that's totally fine. You can let me know. And then give them the opportunity to not have something for you, I think can be really valuable.
I like how you phrase that. Oh, positive twist to it. I love it.
Well, I think that a lot of times people feel varying levels of pressure in these conversations, and letting people know that, hey, you really respect them and that's why you're reaching out. But if they don't have something, or if they can't think of something, that's okay too. That relieves the pressure on people when you're asking them this favor.
Right.
So that could be a really valuable thing. Who is somebody that may not realize that they need your expertise and your skills that could really benefit? You mentioned a few different examples, but who's somebody off the top of your head that may not think they need a cartoonist that could really benefit from a cartoonist? Could be a company, could be a individual.
Well, I mean, I am really into the whole motivational speaker scene right now. And so I would love to connect with a motivational speaker who, is very well known, who could use the benefit of turning their cartoons, their catchphrases or ideas into cartoons. Because I think that is something, like even coloring books, I would love to work with that to create that. Also, musicians have lyrics and stuff that can all be turned into comics. And also, I'm a diehard fan of rom-coms. So people who do chick lit or any escapism, there's so much material there to just turn into heartfelt, books or material to work on projects, whether you release it daily or weekly or something like that. There's a lot of people who don't even realize the power of comics, and the great thing about comics is that they can be reused for merchandise. So you take a frame from one comic, or if you do if you do an Instagram post, you take that, turn it into a t-shirt, you turn it into mugs, you turn it into that, and then boom, like, you know, people are, the thing that I've come across that people are hesitant to pay artists to make content. And it's almost, it's not that you're paying, it's an investment of taking material and making it, you know, making it something more than just words on paper or words on a screen, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, amazing. So basically anybody who doesn't see the value in visualizing their message and bringing their words to life, whether that is a musician, whether that is an artist of a different kind, it could be a blogger, it could be, as you said, motivational speaker, or even somebody who just somebody who has something to say
Yeah.
and they don't know how best to say it. And I think this is why you and I connected so well, is because I am very much a words person, despite how often I fumble over them when doing something like this. But I'm a writer first and foremost, and you know, speaking is probably like the thing I'm second least bad at. But beyond that, the visualization is not something that comes naturally to me, and not even something I can picture in my head. So somebody like you is huge for somebody who's a writer, speaker, you know, artist, like you said, musician. So yeah, it's totally amazing.
Yeah, and also comedians. I mean, there's so many comedians out there. Like their material are right for you know, to be turned into comics and art. And I mean, right now it's just there's, you know, I'm freelancing, so there's lots of different clients, but I would just love to have one project or one big person that I'm working with just to collaborate to make something like this happen. There's just, you know, the great thing about art also is that with the pandemic, this can be done remotely. You don't need to have a whole staff to film something. This is something just you and me do this, work on this, you know, and it can be done remotely anytime, you know. If everybody's schedule gets a little bit crazy, you know, so you just make up the hours, you know, it's not like you have to be in an office from 9 to 6 to be with the team. So I think that people just need to realize the value of paying for people what they're worth to help them bring their messages across in such an invaluable way right now.
Yeah. Well, as you said, I think that's a key point to make is it is an investment. You're not paying somebody to make you a comic for a one-time use. Like you're paying for somebody to create an asset for you that can be used and reused over and over again, repurposed. You know, like you said, can be actually used as merchandise. You can make it an investment that actually ends up paying you money down the line.
Yeah.
So
And then my favorite cartoonist of all time, the cartoonist that made me want to be an artist and professionally, is Bill Watterson, who created the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes. And I love that strip so much. And my biggest problem with it is that he just didn't want to merchandise it. And I know I respect his wishes, but I would love to have, it's, you know, some people say, oh, you sell out. I don't believe in that. When you use your art, you can put it on anything you want. And it makes the whole point of art, besides for expressing yourself, is to make the other person feel like it's their expression. Like it becomes a part of them too. So, you know, more is more when it comes to that,
yes,
you know, in my point of view.
in my mind, and I may catch a lot of flack for this, people who accuse other people of selling out either don't have an art that they're expressing right now, or they're not monetizing their art. And maybe they've tried to and they've struggled to, so they see somebody else doing that. If you stay true to like your voice and who you are and you're cranking out art, there's no such thing as selling out. You are simply making a living off of your art. And more people are doing that nowadays in the last decade or so than ever before. So if anybody ever tells you you're selling out, odds are they're not creating, or they're not successful yet at the monetizing of that. So I totally agree with you on Calvin and Hobbes. I adore that comic strip. And yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, and we're going to wrap up for today, but I will let you have sort of the last word here and let anybody know anything. Why don't you let people know, anybody who's going to hire a cartoonist or somebody with illustrative skills, storytelling skills like yours, what is something that they should know that maybe they don't know going in?
That's an interesting question. I think that the process takes longer than people think. I think they expect, I think that if you come and hire an artist, you know, you can crank things out really well, but I think in the beginning it takes time to establish the the groove and the style and the rapport. So, you know, anytime you work with someone, you know, it just takes a little bit of a learning curve. And then once you hit a learning curve, things can go into, you know, autopilot, and things can be, well, and I think, you know, I think sometimes people expect everything, I expect everything to be done. Like, let's say they have something in their head and then the artist can't quite get exactly what they're saying. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. And sometimes, you know, sometimes the, you know, the artist also, you know, that's just the artist's vision. So either way, you know, just gotta, I guess, realize what your preference is for a project. But you know, and also if you worked with one artist, a second artist might have a different set of learning tools, so and expression. So, you know, sometimes you have to also just come up with terminology that you both understand, so you're on the same page, so there's no miscommunications. But yeah, I feel like no two artists are really alike, and you know, whatever, and every project is different, and collaborations are really fun, and there are lots of, you know, that it's kind of an open-ended question. So
I think, especially coming from anyone coming from a corporate world or anybody who hasn't hired an artist before, you know, they should know what they're getting into going in. You know, eyes 100%. What is it? Eyes wide open. Is that the word?
Well, if you're talking about a corporate perspective, hiring an artist specifically, then also, you know, artists are not necessarily 9-to-5 creatures in the same way. So just always be, if you hire any creative that you hire, should just have a little, like, if they have a certain way of working that works for them, try to let them work in the way, as long as, you know, they get the work done, as long as you guys agree that this is fine, then, you know, there might be some unconventional ways of working there that are totally conventional for the creative. So it's okay. It's okay to be creative and think outside the box and work outside of the box. So that's just a big bit of advice that I've learned over the years.
Totally agree with that too. It's, you can keep track of kind of the progress of the work. When people are working in particular, like what hours of the day is less important, as long as the work gets done at the end of the day, the output of the work and the outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
And awesome. I think if there's one good thing to come from all the coronavirus, I think people are realizing the value in that.
Yes, definitely, especially with having kids at home. And, you know, I've talked about this, and you got kids and spouses and, you know, school, and now no school, and every other.
And animals, I mean, animals, everybody has, you know, their own life, no matter what the variables are. Everybody has, you know, some people are taking care of parents, some people are, you know, everybody's got their stuff going on back at home. And when work's at home, it's a very different environment versus when everybody's in the office too.
Yeah. The number of interesting things my dog has to chew on in the last 45 minutes is pretty impressive, and not things that we have access to. So and that's just one example. So awesome. Well, thank you, Sherry, for jumping on today and joining me. And I'm glad we got to know you a little bit. And I hope that other folks who are in a similar situation as you learned a little bit as well of like how you could creatively use your skills to find freelance work, to find gigs, to help out people in your community or total strangers. And then if you have an opportunity that you think fits here, you can go to Sherry's website, which is her name, Sherry Pear, CHARIPERE.com. I had it flashed up on our previous stream that we decided not to use because the software is breaking on us. So thank you again, Sherry. And it was a pleasure chatting with you, finally getting to talk with you face to face. And yeah, if you've got something for Sherry, feel free to reach out to her via our website. And until next time, guys, cheers.